Okay, hello guys, and welcome back to Teen Muscle Radio, and this is episode number 6. I am here joined by my guest Anthony Sydric, and so before basically I get into anything about what this episode is going to be about, I'd like to and if you could tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, a little bit more, so they just know who you are before we go into today's specific topic.
Absolutely. My name's Anthony. I'm a 32-year-old natural drug-free bodybuilder. Still fairly new in the whole competing side of things. First show was last year. I've been training for coming on just over 17 years now, so fairly experienced in the gym, I'd say. My goals are just to become as good as I can be as a natural athlete, basically, and see how far I can take it.
Brilliant. So what got you into bodybuilding originally? Now, the topic obviously we're going to speak about today is slightly different.
Yeah.
But just give the viewers a brief idea as to what got you into lifting and how lifting has sort of changed your life currently. Just a brief roundup.
Yeah, cool. So, when I first started training, it was back in 2001, and I remember quite vividly seeing this body for life transformation. It was a guy called Anthony Ellis who managed to go from a pretty skinny guy, quite lean but skinny, into a jacked guy in 3 months. And I thought, oh man, that sounds amazing. Because I was pretty skinny, like most teens are. And I thought, that sounds really cool. Obviously, results didn't come quite as quickly at first, but I became hooked on the training straight away. And then, just gradually started to learn more about diet and nutrition. But the main focus with me was always bettering myself in the weights room, to be honest.
Sure.
Making those goals. I initially wanted to compete when I was in my early 20s, but with various things happening in life, it just wasn't the right time for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I was more inclined to go out drinking and stuff, and now as a slightly more mature adult, competing is definitely right for me. And most of my goals at the moment are all going to be competition goals.
And for the viewers that don't already know, what do you do for a living? Are you working a normal job? What do you do for a living at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm self-employed. Been self-employed since 2008. I'm currently a home personal trainer and online coach. But I've also worked in a gym for quite a long period of time. And that's pretty much what I do. It's a mixture of online and home PT work at the moment, which is good. Gives a nice bit of variation.
Brilliant. I can relate with that.
For sure. Exactly.
So so for us today, what we've got is a little bit different to the other episodes, because I wanted to bring Ant onto the podcast to discuss a specific topic, purely because we've both been through it. Last year, me and Ant were both prepping for competitions, and we shared a lot of conversations on these sort of topics, and we always thought about maybe sort of getting it out there and getting more people to realize what it's actually like to get into stage condition. So as you'll see by the title, what we're really going to be talking about and touching on is the psychological and physiological effects of a contest prep diet. So now both, whilst these two things are kind of similar, they do have their differences, and there are a bunch of topics that they relate to pretty hard with a contest prep. So I think it's important for people to get this message and really understand it prior to them even deciding about competing. So this is why it's really important, especially for the younger guys out there, because they may not see it as a task so difficult. So before we get into it, Anthony, I'd just like you to sort of describe to the audience what last year was like in terms of what you achieved. Give them an idea as to, I'm sure we will link a photo of your conditioning, etc. But give them an idea of what you achieved in your first competitive season. What sort of condition were you in, and how did you place at your shows? Give them an idea of your results.
So basically, like AJ, I would enter the BNBF series of competitions, which is a natural federation here in the UK. Definitely recommend them. And my aim was to just go for the BNBF Southern, which was in early mid-July 2015, and with the aim to qualify and then get to the finals. So basically, I gave myself like a good 6 months. I started prep properly in early January, and then after 6 months of hard dieting and a bit before, which I'll go into, I entered the novice class in my show, and I won my class, which was pretty awesome, pretty amazing. And then I went on to win the overall title as well for the BNBF Southern last year, and Best Wheels, of course.
Best Wheels.
And yes, from that show, I obviously qualified and went to the finals, which was in, I believe, September. It was in mid-September 2015. But through the excessively long period of dieting, my physique took a bit of a downward turn, and unfortunately I didn't place in the finals, which was the right decision in my opinion. But those were my two shows last year. So an overall win and then a non-placing in the final.
For sure. So, and achieved some incredible conditioning. To put a sort of hallmark on that, we're talking about very, very striated quads. We're talking about striated glutes. We're not talking about getting on stage with some abs. We're talking about serious levels of conditioning that require some sacrifice, and this is what we're going to touch on today. So how, before we get into obviously those sort of things, how did you achieve this physique? So did you follow sort of a bro meal plan? Did you use, obviously you're in the BNBF, so we do realise that you were a natural athlete. But explain to the guys obviously what sort of foods you were eating, and how you really approached your prep in terms of from a nutritional standpoint.
Absolutely. So 100% flexible with my diet. No meal plans here.
Sure.
And basically, with the flexibility that my job offers as well, being a home PT, I don't really have to, because I'm not in an office all day. I don't need to think that much about what I'm eating, because I can always pop home, grab some food, and eat on the fly. Without much thought. So very much a flexible diet, and started off on a set amount of proteins, carbs, and fats, overall calories. I even remember that my first macros were 200 protein, 290 carbs, 80 fats, which are my first prep macros, pretty decent. And from there, I basically, if I found my weight would stick for a certain amount of time, I'd start to take the numbers down a little bit, and then start to incorporate more cardio into the routine. But because it was such a long period of time, and because I was pretty lean to begin with, I was able to get into the kind of condition which helped me win the show.
So that gives you guys an idea as to how Ant achieved this. And the thing that I want you guys to remember when we go into the topics is that Ant used flexible dieting. This is going to be something that we will touch on, and we're going to touch on the pros and cons of potentially why flexible dieting can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. Okay, so obviously we know, and a lot of us that will be listening to the podcast will know, that there are some side effects of getting into condition for bodybuilding shows. So what point did you realise in your bodybuilding prep that any sort of things were going south in terms of how you felt or how you perceived things? So we're talking about both psychological and physiological. So when did these sort of big things happen? Not necessarily what, but sort of when?
For me, it was actually pretty early. Too early, I'd say. And that goes, that boils down to the fact that I was actually pretty lean to begin with. So my show was in mid-July, July the 12th, 2015. I started to get my first side effects of having low body fat in mid-March, so from 4 months out. And at first, the side effects were pretty subtle. It was just a little bit of tiredness, and that was it. And I thought, that's strange, feeling a bit more tired than usual. But that was just the beginning. For me, it was 4 months. 4 months out, I started to feel my very first side effects. Like 6 kilos above stage weight as well, that was.
Okay, that's a very interesting topic, and I'd like to add that obviously people, and if you're approaching a bodybuilding prep, people will feel these sort of symptoms at different points.
Oh yeah.
We all have sort of a comfortable level of body fat. I believe the right term is body fat set point, so where your body will be happy at a comfortable range, drop below that and you start to feel some negative side effects. And this is obviously what me and Ant both sort of went through last year. So can you describe the initial impact? So you're saying, you know, at this point during prep, you got to this point and you started to think, whoa, something doesn't feel quite normal here.
Yeah.
And now, I'd like to describe what those sort of things were, just initially, the initial things, and whether it was you that noticed them, or did other people point these things out to you? How did it really sort of come apparent?
With the tiredness, because it was quite subtle, it was only me that noticed it at first. And then obviously I live with my wife Sarah, and then she did start to notice, that. I would just have very little energy, and this was still like 15, 16 weeks out when I first started to feel it. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the initial symptoms were just a slight lack of tiredness. It was only later on in prep, like I say, a good month later, that things started to deteriorate a little bit more, and other effects started to become more prominent.
Sure, for sure. So did you find that this, so for people watching that maybe have a busy day job, they maybe are a personal trainer like us, or they're doing things at home or have important social events to go to, did you find that this had a drastic effect on those things completely outside of the gym?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, certainly towards the end of prep. Things got to the point where I would avoid social occasions, basically.
What about the initial ones? Did the initial ones have an effect on work or home or anything like that? So, like the 12-week out mark, did they have an effect?
Honestly, not, to be fair.
Okay,
and I was fairly lean by that stage. I was starting to get, I remember every now and again I look back at my YouTube videos to see my conditioning, and that was when I first started to get like the odd ab vein, but by most people's standards I was shredded at that point. But also I knew that I could take things a lot further. Having said that, like I said, it was just a bit of tiredness and fatigue at first, and it was fairly manageable, to be fair. So that was all it was.
This is an interesting question. Did you feel like, I've got this 12-week mark, I've got so much longer to go, what if I qualify for the finals? Did at any point you think these feelings are potentially coming too soon, and did you feel worried as a result?
No, see, I felt happy that I was feeling this lean, because I mean, I don't know why, but people were saying, so that was just when I joined Instagram and social media, which kind of helped actually in my prep. And everyone was saying, you look shredded for this far out, and I thought, that's good, because then I can get even more shredded. Basically, my aim going into the first show, and it's not an aim I would honestly recommend for people. I just thought to myself, and I said to Sarah, I just want to be the most shredded guy on stage, and I don't really care about anything else. I just have to be the most shredded guy. And looking back, that was probably a bit of a mistake. Obviously, you should aim to be your best on stage, and that's a culmination of muscle size, symmetry, condition, fullness. I think once you start to dig too deep into the conditioning factor, you're gonna have to make sacrifices everywhere else. Honestly, I kind of felt good about that, to be honest. I thought, okay, I'm ahead of schedule. To reach my target of being just the leanest guy up there. I didn't really think of the potential side effects at the time. I was just so focused on that goal, to be honest.
For sure. Did you think the side effects were only going to get worse, or did you feel that because you've gotten lean before? I've seen pictures of you in the past of you in very good condition, and this is where obviously I think at the 12-week mark you probably transitioned from that beach body look to okay, now I'm going to be a bodybuilder. I'm going to step on stage in trunks.
Yeah.
My glutes are going to be on show. I
Mm.
want them to be shredded.
That's
Now,
it.
did you feel like, I know this is going to get worse, but I'm prepared for it?
Yeah.
Is that how you felt? Yeah, so you felt
Oh,
really prepared.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I was so focused. I mean, I was prepared to not let anything get in my way, to be honest. Which, it's going to have effects on other aspects of your life. But
Yeah.
because I was just so focused on this show, and because I'd spent a long time, preparing to get in shape for this show, that I was just extremely focused, and I would do whatever it took, basically. Yeah.
I think that's a really good piece of advice
Mm.
for anyone that's watching this that's maybe at that 12-week out mark. You never know, there might be people watching this that are fairly close to a show, they're struggling, they're starting to feel those struggles come in.
Yeah.
I think that what you just said there about having that laser focus
Yeah.
is something that just people need to grasp,
Yeah.
purely because this is something that everyone should know. You will never transition from that beach body to the striated glutes, the striated legs, until you have the ability to mentally push through that barrier, which is obviously why the psychological effects are so strong.
Definitely.
So, brilliant. That was a very good topic. I'd really like to talk quite a lot about the next topic, which is going to be under the bracket of food. And food is something that, just to give the audience like a brief roundup as to what sort of food things can happen during a contest prep, food becomes a lot more of an issue, not just in the calories going down, but the fact that you are experiencing just a completely different relationship with food. And these are some experiences that me and Ant both shared, to the point where we'd have quite a lot of Facebook chats about food or about things that are going on with food. This is something really important, and I hope that a lot of people can relate to this listening to the podcast. So describe to us everything, just the biggest things that you experienced moving into the deeper stages of prep. In fact, maybe as we started with the initial effects, let's start with, when did food focus or something different with food happen to you during prep?
I'd say for me it was probably around the 12-week out stage. So a little bit after, when I first started noticing the tiredness. 12-week out, so when I was pretty lean, that's when I first started to notice it. And I would describe it as, it's a feeling of, you can be physically full from eating a meal. It can be really satiating, super high volume, but you're never kind of psychologically full, and that's what I was feeling. In a nutshell, that's what the last 3 months of prep was like. You're never psychologically full from eating. But
Would you say that the initial food focus was something that you had thought would happen? Did you know that this was something that was going to take place?
I had kind of looked up. I'd looked at a lot of 3DMJ videos in the past, and other YouTubers, and so I kind of anticipated to an extent, but I don't really think you can prepare yourself for how it's going to be, and I think it's going to be different for everyone. I mean, because I'm prepping clients currently, and it's not the same for everyone. Some people have that kind of food focus, but some don't. But certainly for me, it was an issue. It was an issue I could control, but it was definitely something that I had to control, really, if I wanted to stay on track.
It's nice to hear that you could control it. And the question that leads on, because obviously we want to flow with this, is the question that leads on from that is did you ever have a slip up? Did you ever have a point in prep where you were the food problem? It's mostly physiological, this adaptation, because what happens is, obviously, the hormones that are going on in your body whilst being a low body fat are telling you, man, you need more food, you need more food, you need more food. And it's not whilst psychological things can control it, people need to realize that it's more a physiological effect of dieting than it is psychological. And I think a lot of people get hung up on thinking, this is psychological, I need to battle through it. You need to work with it, correct? But you've got to realize that these things happen to anyone who is dieting. It's a physiological effect. So when did you sort of like feel like, my original question, did you have a slip up at any point during your competition prep diet?
I came very close to having one once, and I was due a refeed day about 7 weeks out, and this was the time where I started to implement some kind of, they weren't set refeed numbers, they were kind of see how you feel, which can be dangerous, especially as me and my wife were going to London to meet with friends. Everyone would be drinking, and we went to a hotel. We got a load of food, sweets, low fat food, of course, but a lot of carby food. And I remember being on about 600 carbs before we went out for a Nando's. And then I had a few beers, and it was kind of hard to track things. And eventually I just had to bail and leave everyone because it was just messing with my head so much. So that was about as close as I come to a slip up. And it could have easily gone full on like binging, to be fair. But to combat that, had I not gone out at all, it would have been a lot easier to deal with.
Sure.
But yeah,
I have heard a lot more this year, people going away from their competition prep diets. I'm not sure if you agree, but I've seen it quite often on social media, people coming away from their prep diets, and I'm not sure as to whether it's becoming more in the limelight. If people know Matt August, I know that Matt August did quite a big video on his sort of quite like binges and like poor relationship with food that he developed on his contest prep. So I'm not sure as to whether it's becoming, people view it as normal and they feel like it's okay. But I would like to touch on it, and I just remember vividly when you mentioned the fact that I think we both started doing how do you feel refeeds. So I'd really like to touch on that, because I think that's potentially a really, 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 really bad idea. Because when you're dieting, you're doing these like low calorie days in order to achieve a deficit. You cannot tell yourself, I'm going to go by feel. If I feel like I can have more carbohydrate, then I'll have it, because you're just an empty pit for food. You can put anything in, you can feel bloated like a whale, and you can keep putting food in. And I remember vividly one or 2 days I had, if Harry Johnson watches this, I had Harry Johnson over for a few days, and I'd reached like my peak conditioning. I looked awesome, and I'd pushed so hard for it. And I did one of my refeeds. I was due a refeed, and I think my normal refeeds were either 600 or 700 grams. And I remember watching a 3DMJ video of Jeff Alberts, and he had a 2011 prep where he was doing these auto-regulated refeeds. So if anyone doesn't know what auto-regulating is, it's basically going by feel. You can do it in your training, you can adapt to how you feel on a given day, and you can obviously do it with nutrition as well, maybe not in a deficit. And I just remember waking up, having my usual meals. I'd get home from training and I'd be like, I'm just an empty pit, I can have more. And it would be, I'd weigh it out to the gram. So I was weighing Rivitas out to the gram. I was weighing Dutch crisp bakes out to the gram. Caramel Snacker Jacks.
Nice.
I think I hit, and there's a post somewhere, you'll be able to find it. I think I hit 1,000 grams of carbs with 32 grams of fat, which is quite the achievement. So, and I also remember very vividly when we were having a conversation on Facebook, and I think you were at some sort of birthday party or something, and you were eating
Yes, I remember
Skittles.
this. Yeah.
You were eating Skittles, and you were like,
Yeah.
I think I can have more, or something like that. I
Yeah.
think I can get away with more this time.
Mm.
So it's really important for people to realize that if you are refeeding, probably a good idea is to be structured with them. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think these days can be helpful, but I think in future preps, I might just stick to set numbers. Yeah, I might just change. I would even change them as late as during the day if I feel I need to. But I think once it goes past midday, then I don't want to be making any, oh, let's add another 100, 200 grams of carbs here. I think it's best to mostly stick with your plan of macros, even if it is 700, 800 grams of carbs. Because when your hormones are all over the place, when your leptin levels are that low, I mean, yeah, you could probably smash like 3 kilos of carbs if you wanted to. I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah, nothing's going to fill you up. But yeah, I remember that day vividly. Actually, that was I ate a lot of food and still didn't feel full.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
what it's like.
you're just a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean that's just a really really interesting topic. And would you think that did you ever feel guilty or like you'd set yourself back? And do you think that the refeeds or looking at food as a refeed and the higher carbohydrate days, do you ever feel like there was this element of guilt or, oh man, I don't want this refeed, it's going to set me back, or anything like that? Because I've experienced that quite a lot with people.
I did feel that, and it would often, the refeed days were sometimes, more pain than pleasure because, sometimes 450 carbs, 700 carbs, whatever it ends up being, it just isn't enough. And, you get to the end of the day and, you're so bloated, your muscles will feel fuller and better. But, due to the extra bloating, you're going to second guess yourself. And I did as well. I remember I had 2 consecutive days of a 900 gram carb and a 1,000 gram carb day, just after I'd been to the doctors to get checked out because I was just feeling, god awful.
Horrible.
After the first show. And yeah, I felt a little bit of guilt. Like, did I go too far maybe? But it turns out I recovered nicely from it. But yeah, I'd say for me, the psychological aspects of food it became the only thing on my mind,
Yes.
basically. So I would always be thinking about the next meal. Always, if I wasn't eating, I'd be thinking about the next meal. I wouldn't want to eat with anyone around me. Weirdly, that was another strange thing.
So similar. So
Yeah,
similar.
it became, and I think you said this as well, and it hit the nail on the head, like a ritual, like some kind of religious thing. It was so strange. Like, and even I remember I would have 2 bites of food and then I'd have to have some water. It would be like a strange little ritual I had to fill me up, but also because I'm OCD, I'm crazy. And yeah, it was just the weirdest experience. And it's hard to explain, and I don't think you can really prepare yourself for it until you get to those crazy levels of body fat. And I think a lot of bodybuilders won't experience this because I think you probably have to be pretty shredded to have these effects.
I think if you're not sitting down with your chair in a particular direction
Yeah.
with a particular spoon, then
yeah.
you're not shredded.
Yeah, I have my favourite spoon as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I still use
literally it. The favourite spoon, the favourite cup. I remember if I was having hot drinks, it'd be in the same cup, and it had to be.
Yeah.
I had to be in the same cup. These things.
That's crazy, isn't it?
These things. So many people will hopefully open up this podcast, listen to this podcast, and they'll be like, finally, I'm not the only one. So another question that I really, really had on food was, do you think that flexible dieting had a positive or a negative effect on your food focus and your ability to work around these issues that you had with food?
I think flexible dieting, it helps to an extent. Certainly in the early stages of prep, because I was in prep for so long, it certainly helped those first 4 months or so, where I was, still eating chocolate on a daily basis, still eating like massive meringue nests and loads of, Snacker Jacks, crisps, cereals, and this was on even non-refeed days. So I love the variety that it offered, and still managing to get very, very lean. I think once you get into the deep stages of prep, though, I don't think it's. I think then it becomes about level with the whole clean eating, structured meal plan thing. I don't really. I think once you get to that stage, it's going to be. I don't want to say hell, but it's going to be very, very challenging for you, and whichever kind of diet you follow. But certainly for the first stage of prep, it's incredible because you're getting lean, while still eating all these amazing foods, which other people won't have experienced if you're sticking to a bro meal plan.
I think there's some element of merit to potentially looking at periodized nutrition for a bodybuilding contest prep. So say the first 10 weeks you felt fairly good, everything's all brilliant, flexible dieting is well and truly in. Brill. So you get to that 10-week mark, you check in with your coach, or you're doing regular sort of check-ins with yourself.
Yeah.
Boom. Like one or 2 weeks, you're starting to feel really groggy, really bad. I think that's where we could almost take in a meal plan, just so that levels of fullness, satiety, and just from a mental point of view, it might actually benefit people.
Yeah, that would work, I think, just having that structure.
Because I find a lot of people create food focus by spending all day on MyFitnessPal. I literally think that is one of the biggest causes of people just looking too deep into nutrition. They're looking at the calories of everything. Man, in my first prep, 2014, I remember when I first sort of grasped, it was only halfway through my prep.
Yeah.
Because originally I was a bro, and I've had plenty of people like this. Marcus was very much initially a bro, and he came over, and about halfway through he just clocked and he started changing over, and that was similar to me. But I would find myself walking around the supermarket scanning bloody items of food and being like, whoa, the macros are great on this.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good when you're in a surplus and you're not really focused too much on it. But I think when you're in a deficit, you're tired, you're hungry, the last thing you want to be thinking about is how many pink and whites can you fit in your refeed.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So
food is already going to be the main focus, and that's just going to amplify it even more. So I agree completely.
Cool. Moving on to our last question on food, because this is something I really, really wanted to hit on. I think we've got a lot of good tips on this, so really, really great segment here for people to listen to. So the last question is, and I'm sure a lot of people potentially now, potentially later in the year will benefit from this, and this is: how long do you think, or well, you will know now, how long was it until you realized that this food focus had almost completely eradicated itself from your daily life post show?
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. So after my last show in 2015.
Yeah, correct.
I'd say food focus. It was a couple of months, I'd say, a good 8 weeks before I wasn't obsessing with food, because obviously I still had to reverse diet out of that, my initial macros. And in fact, though, that was a horrible 8 weeks.
Tell us more about that. Tell us more about what happened post-show, and do you think that describe how it was potentially caused by psychological things going on? Like how did those weeks sort of fold out?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, initially, the big physiological impact was the huge water retention I got when I went to Prague for a week with my wife. Massive swelling ankles, and from six pack to no six pack in like that instantly. Scary stuff. Once I got back into the swing of things, psychologically it was difficult. Just because there's no goal. You haven't got a goal anymore for a show. You haven't got a date, and you're still sticking on these fairly low numbers when your hormones are nowhere near back to where they should be. So I was on maybe 250, 300 carbs, maybe a little bit higher, but that was nowhere near what I wanted. And because of that, it was just those 7 to 8 weeks were very, very difficult for me. Yeah, just because I was nowhere near back to normal. It's both psychologically and physiologically.
Did you follow through with quite a strict reverse? Because I know that you went to Prague, came back, and I was still prepping at that point, and you sent me a picture of your midsection, and I was pretty blown away by how quickly your body had changed. Obviously, you'd gone from pretty damn shredded to very bloated in a very short period of time, and
in a week,
and it was noticeable. Yeah. So, how did you sort of go about? Did you go into a very strict reverse through that after that period?
Well, I just basically set to my plan. I'd set myself macros, which post Prague I was planning on hitting.
Okay.
And once a lot of that water weight had subsided, the abs came back, and I got back on track with the reverse. The weight come down, and then it gradually crept up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a couple of weeks of like huge water retention, which I think for those competing for the first time, teens, juniors, or anyone, it's something that you may not really anticipate, and then it hits you, and you're like, "Well, what's happened to me?" It's pretty scary. But yeah, once I got back and hit the macros, things were pretty smooth sailing, and I adhered to the reverse diet quite well. I probably put on weight a little quicker than I would have liked, but I mean,
do you think that was a benefit?
I think I needed it, to be fair.
I think I'd agree.
Yeah. I mean, I'm currently sitting at probably like 10 kilos over a carved up stage weight, and I'm feeling good now. I think I'm back to hormonally what a human should be like. But it took me a while to get back to that stage, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, just to give my 2 cents on that, I really feel that the longevity, sorry, to rephrase that, the length of the contest prep will drastically affect the length of the recovery.
Definitely.
I think that I had quite a long prep, similar to yours, and so I finished prep late October. In December, January, probably closing into early February, I was still pretty bad in terms of my food focus.
Really?
I can remember Christmas being pretty dodgy in terms of the fact that I would just think about food as calories. I think like I wouldn't feel full.
Yeah.
I probably had circa, if any of my clients see this, I do apologise. I probably had circa 6,000, maybe 7,000 calories on Christmas Day, purely because I just couldn't psychologically stop myself.
Right. Yeah.
From eating, purely because I just didn't have this full cap yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's because I did stay relatively lean. I was about 10 pounds above my stage weight. Being honest with every viewer, I think when I felt normal was when I was 20 or maybe 15 above.
Yeah.
But the very odd thing, Anne, is I felt awesome up until, so coming down, I felt brilliant until I was about 5 pounds away from stage weight.
Really? That is interesting.
Which is very, very interesting. And I'd love someone to almost document that, because obviously hormones are suppressed for a long period of time. Hence why I think the length of a contest prep affects how quickly you recover. Because obviously when you're coming down, hormones are slowly getting suppressed, whereas you're coming up, I think it takes almost a bit of an influx of food for you to get them straight back up to where they should be, and that thus an increase in body weight, and obviously stress, etc. throughout the prep. But that is something really interesting to hit on. I think for me personally, it took a lot longer. Things were happening, like I'd finished my last meal of the day. I can remember talking to Jack Gadd on Facebook Messenger and thinking, we were both chatting about how hungry we were and how that we were like, we've finished, like, why are we still hungry? And then I think I ate like I think every night I'd finish my last meal, and then I'd somehow condemn eating 2 squares of dark chocolate, which is obviously 120 calories. Like, I could have 120 calories of something way more filling than dark chocolate.
Yeah.
But for some reason, some psychological reason, I had to condemn myself to eat that. It was very, very odd, which showed me that I wasn't quite in the right place, food wise. So what would be, to close this food topic, what would be the biggest advice that you would give to an individual that's currently suffering with some element of food focus, whether it be during or post show? What would you say would be the main things that's helped you fix it and just eradicate it and say goodbye to your food focus?
I think honestly, you just have to almost live with it, and it's going to be hard. I think whatever. I'd say don't rush things. Don't stop tracking completely. Because that's only going to end badly. But also don't reverse too slowly either. I think there needs to be an initial bump of calories straight away post show, and then you can gradually increase things from there. But what would I say to? Yeah, honestly, I think it's just hard.
Suck it up.
Suck it up, yeah. Yeah, in terms of that, yeah.
But
honestly,
what if they were struggling with it afterwards?
Yeah.
So I know me and you have struggled it with like a little bit afterwards, not massively, but if they were really, really struggling with it afterwards, would you say that the best option is to potentially see a professional that's maybe dealt with a lot of people that's gone through food focus issues? Because potentially, obviously, it could hang around for a period of time that's just not manageable. For example, if it was affecting their work-life balance.
Yeah, maybe that'd be a good idea. Yeah, you don't want to have a bad relationship with food for life. I mean, that'd be awful. Yeah.
I think, so for anyone watching this that is obviously dealing with some element of food focus, there's potentially, just like there's loads of information on nutrition, training, bodybuilding, there's probably a podcast out there, a book or something that you can get that's really going to help you with sort of specific professional advice from someone that's dealt with a load of clients with food focus. So that would be probably the main tip to take away from this, is if it is affecting your life still, say 5-6 months down the line post show, you probably need to do something about it, because it is something that shouldn't hang around for too long. Yeah, no, it shouldn't.
I think a lot of it is going to be hormonal changes. I think once they get back to normal, I think most people, I imagine, would be okay. I mean, we're both, I think we have a good relationship with food now. Yeah. We're back to normal. I guess it's going to be different for others.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's things like over the weekend, like me and Ant ate out at a restaurant. We'd be freaking out usually, if we were in prep or post-show, we'd just be freaking out about salt, sodium. I remember when we had that burger in Brighton, it's things like this. We'd even message each other the next morning saying, like, how much are you up by? It's just things like that. It's just like, you shouldn't be worrying about that now, if you're like that far away from a show, but just it will hang about and things will happen, so it's important that people do realise that.
Yeah, but it will get better.
For sure. So, we've talked a lot about food, which I expected, which is good. So I want to touch a little bit. I don't want to hold you for too long. I don't want to hold the listeners for too long, of course. But I want to touch a little bit on physique and how the physique sort of things impacted your prep from a psychological point of view. Obviously, it's mainly psychological things going on with how you view your physique during contest prep. So to start off with, I'd like you to sort of say how did you feel when you started your contest prep? Were you very comfortable in your current body, and did you feel like always happy whatever clothes you wear, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started prep, I've been training for a long time, so I've always been confident with my body and my physique. And when I first started, I was in good shape. I'd had a good run of a good few years uninterrupted without any issue, any time off. So I was in a good place with my physique, and yeah, at the start of my prep. And then at the beginning, I mean, you're going to notice as you get smaller, clothes don't quite fit you so well. They're going to start to hang off you a little bit.
Sure.
But I think because I was quite big to begin with, that didn't really affect me too much.
So you were very confident from the beginning.
Pretty much.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something that I think is really important, because a lot of people enter a contest prep with the imagination or the thought, that the contest prep is going to only improve the way they view themselves. And I think that it's very important to realise that going into a calorie deficit, getting lean, will actually change the way you look at your physique quite drastically.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's very important to get comfortable with the way you look prior to starting a diet. That's my opinion, at least.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So what would you say were the main changes that you saw in terms of how you were looking at yourself? So,
Okay.
for really good question here, in terms of in your off season, gaining phase, surplus, before you did a prep,
Yeah.
how often would you look at your physique?
To be fair, I was always someone that would look at it quite a lot, but then that's probably not a good example. Yeah, my wife would say that I'm always someone that looks in the mirror, checking the gains, and that's been the way for years, really.
Were you always happy though when you looked in the mirror when you were in a gaining phase, or did you think, man, I need to get bigger, I need to get this bigger, this or bigger that, or did you ever were you? This is a bit too deep into the questions I want to ask, but were you more content? Were you more often content with the way that you looked when you were in a surplus? So you look in a mirror, you're in the surplus. Were you more often happy with the way that you looked comparative to when you were in a surplus and you look in the mirror?
No, see, for me, I was happiest in terms of my physique. I was happiest in prep because I was always, you know,
Interesting.
I always liked, the way I looked to an extent. Even though I want to see massive changes like
Yeah.
everyone else does. Once I got into prep and started seeing the new separation and definition, vascularity,
Sure.
yeah, that was my kind of ideal physique.
Wow.
Like a few months out, really. Still fairly big, but even at the very end of prep, I loved the way I looked. To be fair.
And you were never
yeah.
so you were never, we have other people on the podcast. We had Jonah and myself also, just very covered up. I'm not now, but when I first started my bodybuilding prep, I was very covered up. If you asked anyone in the gym that I trained at, when I was training with Marcos, me and Marcos would train with a hoodie on the entire session. Very
Right.
rarely would we take it off.
Yeah.
And I think that prep actually improved my confidence with my body a little bit, purely because I felt more comfortable to obviously training a vest and things like that. But that's very interesting that obviously the question, the answer, that I was expecting, from a lot of people, is that the frequency of physique update check-ins would probably increase throughout the prep.
Yeah, they did increase. Yeah.
I mean, that's a given.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like in terms of, checking up on your progress, keeping an eye on how you're looking? Obviously you coached yourself.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was quite difficult? Did you ever battle yourself mentally to think, I'm so not ready, or I'm too far ahead, or were there any mental battles that you had with the way that you looked in the mirror?
Funnily enough, there weren't really. In terms of how my prep went from a physique standpoint, I think it went, for my first prep, for the first show, I think it went, almost perfectly, really.
Yeah.
The effects were only, well, there were psychological effects and there were effects that were happening to my body. But in terms of how the prep went and how I saw myself in the mirror, I was only ever really, happy with how it went. Strangely, I don't know why. It was only after I went into the second prep that I thought, no, things are starting to go downhill now. But certainly during the first prep, I was really happy with my physique progress over those 6 months.
Did you have anyone, because you have a YouTube channel, which I'll link in the description below, which is very popular, very, very popular, and did you have anyone on YouTube that was sort of like regularly commenting, saying, Ant, you're looking really good, you're looking far ahead, and do you feel that actually improved the way that your sort of mental outlook? I mean, you sound like a very positive guy throughout the entire thing, but do you think that external factors from people telling you look good, did they help?
I'd say it helped. Yeah, the comments were mostly positive. I'd say it helped. It definitely wasn't a hindrance. It definitely didn't make me cocky. It just kind of confirmed what I thought, that I'm a bit ahead of schedule and things are going well.
So you believed them? You believed like the comments that were being said?
Well, I don't want to say, I didn't know. To be fair, I didn't believe them, because I kind of.
That's what I wanted you to say.
I don't. Yeah, it's hard to believe anyone apart from yourself, really. Having said that, having a second eye in prep, even if you don't have a coach, having a fellow coach like yourself or a fellow natural bodybuilder, a second eye is a brilliant idea, I'd say. Because you don't, things are a bit hazy in prep, and you always, you do start to look at your physique slightly from a negative point of view, and you become, super sensitive to changes in your physique. So the daily weigh-ins, the effects from sodium, sleep, stress, you're going to become very aware of the little changes that maybe other people won't notice. But because you're so focused on that, it's good to have an outside opinion on your physique. Second eye, definitely a valuable tool if you're having a coach.
I can relate to that a lot. I mean, I had the pleasure of sending you progress pictures quite often towards the end when you were sort of transitioning out of a sort of a prep brain phase, and I wasn't, and I can really relate to this, because I've worked with, luckily enough to work with quite a few bodybuilding clients now, and I'm noticing that quite often the sort of, when they send through the progress pictures, they're almost like, I'm not going to be ready. There's a time period on this, and I think that brings me to a point that people could maybe take away from this, is that you do not always have to have a due date for this thing. Whilst a due date actually can motivate some people, and I think that, in all honesty, I need a due date. I need a given day that I need to be ready for, because otherwise I'm going to be a bit lost. But for people that stress out a lot, like, I mean a lot, I think it's almost there's some merit behind not having a due date and just getting lean, because otherwise you're constantly thinking, like, you'll set these apps on your phone with a countdown to the given day. And we get stressed about things if we have a countdown to an appointment we've got that's going to be like a scary thing for us. We're always scared about these things. So I think that putting excess stress on like a due date can slow progress, and can make people just sort of a little bit more scared. Did you ever think that, did you ever think you weren't going to be ready, or you were always feeling like you were going to be on point?
For my first show, because I knew that I was conditioned so far out. I knew that I would have something good to show on stage, even if I kind of peaked a bit, too early maybe, whatever. I still think, I never thought that I wouldn't do well on stage, if you know what I mean.
That's really good, and I think that's something that I think people will always miss out on potential, like, great stage conditioning because of stress, because they're stressing too much. This is really something that people should take away from this, is that Anthony has done so well, and it's evident when asking questions to him about how he felt on his physique, how he dealt with food, that he had a very sort of low level of stress for his physique. He always knew, you always knew that you were sort of going to display a good package, which would have increased your confidence so much going into the show, and therefore displayed on stage. You knew that you were going to be one of the most conditioned guys, and I think that that's what younger competitors, teens, juniors, should have more of, because quite a lot of those guys, we saw two teenagers past weekend at the BMBF Southern, that were just incredible teenagers that had
Yeah.
huge amounts of development, and they posed confidently and therefore looked great. And I think up until about 3 weeks out, I hadn't actually shown anyone my physique.
Right,
I
really.
really hadn't, like, this was for the first show. I really hadn't shown anyone my physique. I'd sent Marcus a few pictures,
Yeah.
but my friend Marcos, if people know him from other places in the podcast and stuff, but he's the only one that really had seen my physique. And I remember taking some pictures like 2 weeks out and knowing that these pictures were sort of really going to dictate how ready I was. And I looked at them. I remember setting the camera up and taking the video and scrolling through the video, and I actually like threw my phone on the floor.
Oh, really?
I was literally like, I was almost 100% sure that I didn't look any different to the year before.
Right.
I was confident that I wasn't going to be lean enough. And the main reason that I was confident that I wasn't going to be lean enough is because I was comparing myself to the likes of Nunes, the likes of these pro natural bodybuilders with striated glutes. And the only time I gained confidence was when I actually posed in front of a guy called Harry Ranson, who also has a YouTube channel I'm very good friends with, and I posed in front of him, and he was like, "Yeah, like you're shredded. Like people, if there's a team that shows up more shredded than you, then it's going to be difficult for that to take place."
Yeah.
So as soon as someone else looked at me and gave me that reassurance, I was like, right, I'm going to smash this. And I honestly think if I hadn't had Harry say that, or I wouldn't have ever sent any of the photos that were taken when I posed in front of Harry to other people. I remember sending them to like Damien Harry and things like that, because I was now really confident. So like, let's send these pictures, let's get them out there. Didn't post anything on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I sent them out there, and then as soon as I had that confidence, boom, I was ready, and I showed it on stage, and that's what I really think helped me. So I think that's a huge point, is that whilst the psychological effects of prepping is going to take a toll on how you look, you're going to have good and bad days, but the main thing is you've got to have that confidence.
Oh, it's so important. Yeah, you've got to enjoy it. You're working so hard for so long. You need to feel good about yourself when you step on stage. And like you said earlier, I think feeling good about yourself before you go into prep is just vitally important. I think, and that will show on stage.
For sure, and the same with food as well. The same with food, because I think people can actually enter preps with food focus. They can enter bodybuilding preps with
not a good idea.
Extreme food focus, and they think that they can't think that it's going to make it better, because the only thing that's going to make a food focus worse is being in a calorie deficit. It just will. So I mean, that was brilliant discussion, and there were a few more things that I'd love to have touched on, but I think we'll probably do a round 2 at some point, and we'll discuss some more topics, and potentially talk through maybe some suggestions for bodybuilders going through contest prep with struggles, and how to sort of balance them. I think also something that would be brilliant to talk to about you would obviously be managing relationships in a contest prep, because that's something that I haven't done. I haven't had the knowledge, the sort of the experience to be able to do that, and I think that's really important, because there's a lot of teenagers, juniors that are going through relationships and need to obviously maintain that. So I think that's something that I'd love to obviously have you back on.
That'd be a good discussion.
About,
I think, I mean, just wanted to say, as a team, certainly going into a show for the first time, I think just make sure you're ready for the commitment of competing and the relationship you're going to potentially have with food, because it's such a big commitment. It's going to affect a lot of areas of your life that you may not consider, social aspects, your studies, for example, and it's a big commitment for a first time competitor. And I say maybe for a team, think about leaving a little bit in the tank, certainly for your first show. don't try and get all crazy diced and shredded. I'd say for a teen. I mean, we saw those two teens, and but they looked great for a first show. Still a little bit in the tank, and they could smash it at the finals. So
yeah. 100%. I think that's a massively good point. The guys there had a little bit more to lose, but they were massive, and they
look great.
I'd love to. I'm hopefully going to be speaking to one of them soon, and I'd love to know how he felt, because I'd like to see the balance between, whether he actually felt like he suffered to get into that sort of shape. I'm sure he did, but it'll be interesting to see.
Oh, definitely.
So, before I ask my final, very short question, I'd just like you to give the viewers a chance to know where to find you. So, Instagram, social media, and I know
oh, no.
I know something about you. You joined Snapchat today.
So I did, yeah.
So you can give away all your social media. Also mention where you're most active, so people can really sort of get a grasp as to where they should be following you.
Yeah, definitely. So Facebook and Instagram, Ants Bodybuilding and Fitness. I'd say Instagram is where I'm most active. Do like to post on there.
Sure.
Facebook I'll get back into as well. My Snapchat, what is it called? It's just Ant Sydric.
I believe it's Ant Sydric.
Yeah, Ant Sydric. And my YouTube channel, just Ants Bodybuilding and Fitness, once again. Had a bit of a layoff from YouTube, but I'll be making videos again shortly.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people that watch this already follow you. Like, we have a very close network. Me and a lot of other people online are very, very sort of close, and I'm sure a lot of people will love listening to this. And it's been a pleasure to have you on. So
that's been awesome.
The last question I'd like to ask you is, what would be your number one tip for teenagers, juniors, whatever, young people to take away from this podcast that they can implement tomorrow? So literally tomorrow, that's going to benefit them to get better, either in or out the gym, just anything, lifestyle, gym, something that will make them better. What would you say is that top tip?
Okay, or in relation to the psychological aspect, or separate?
Anything, just your tip to make them better tomorrow.
Oh, that's a tough one. Love your training. I think it's important to have a love for this sport, hobby, lifestyle. Just keep loving it and keep learning. There's so much to learn. I've got plenty more to learn, as we all have. Just keep that passion, basically, in terms of improving yourself. I go into detail about logbooks, things like that, and dieting, but just keep that passion there. It's so important. It's the reason I've been training for 17 years, and I haven't fallen out of love with training, because I just love it so much. It's a lifestyle, isn't it? And you don't want to. Haven't really answered that in a eloquent way, but
love and learn. Love and learn, I think.
Love and learn. That's a good way of summarising it.
Is the take-home point, and that's brilliant, Ant. So thank you very much, guys and girls, for listening. This has been quite a long topic, but I'm sure that you'll take loads away from it. And from me, thank you very much. I will be seeing you in the next podcast. So I'll let Ant say, obviously, check out, and then I'll see you in the next one.
Cool, yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. It was awesome.
Thanks, guys.
for having me, man.
See you in the next one.